back again. Glad to be here with you as we continue on with our RE/MAX commercial top producer interviews. And this has been great for me. I've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this because I get to talk to some people I know and I know well, and I've gotten to talk to some people that I don't know at all. But more importantly than all of that is I'm getting to learn a lot from other top producers, and I love that. And today I've got certainly somebody with me that I can learn a lot from. And Mark Thiessen is with me, coming out of Canada. So this is our second Canadian that we've had as part of our top producer. That might tell you a little something. Mark, great to see you. You look like $1,000,000. Thanks for being with me today.
Hey, great to be here, Mark. Good to see you.
So, Mark, let's lay the groundwork for the audience here. Let's do that, and I want you to do that for me. So I want, rather than me talking about your background, I've gone through all your bios, I've taken a look at your business and all of that, but I want you to go ahead and tell them kind of firsthand. Give me the real quick thing here. Agent, broker owner, work solo, work on a team. Tell me about some of that background first, please.
Yeah, I've been an agent my entire career. I've looked at, running a brokerage and things like that. And I think it's best just to attend the grindstone that I work at. It's what I do best. I originally started out as a single practitioner for many, many years and had a partner for 15 years. Now I'm in another partnership. People just came to me and said, we want to join. We have to join you. And I'm part of a large team right now. And it's really quite exciting. I mean, it wasn't something that I thought I was going in that direction, but we have a client list that is more than fourfold. One of us lists a property, maybe even a property that we think might be a little bit difficult. One of the other people seems to have someone perfect for that property. The results have really been exponential. So I'm a big fan of being an agent and working on real estate. It thrills me every time to meet people's real estate goals and exceed their expectations.
So let me dive in a little deeper with this. So I know in our private conversations you've talked about this new arrangement, and I always hear a lot of energy around it, which is very exciting because it excites me as an outsider. But let me talk about kind of what this means from a transactional point of view, a day in, day out point of view. When you're doing deals, first of all, what's most of your space that you play in? Buyer rep, seller rep, tenant rep, landlord rep, consulting? Where are you at on that part of it first?
I mainly deal with sellers and landlords. In where I'm from, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, we're fortunate we're still able to double end deals, and that is the greatest sphere of my work. If I'm the agent on the other side of the equation, I'm pretty sure I know how I'm going to act. And it takes that variable out of the equation. I work for both sides. I bring both sides together, working to both of their benefits.
So that's interesting. So we call that dual agency, and it is perfectly legal here as long as, and of course that's as long as we follow the rules. I always talk about that there's one key rule here that we follow relative to agency and dual agency, and that is you may not advocate for one party to the detriment to the other. I'm glad you brought that up. And the reason I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, is I haven't had this discussion with anybody else. And in my opinion, and it sounds like this plays a bearing upon your overall production as well. So your production numbers bear the benefit of being able to work both sides of a transaction. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I would say 95% of what I do, I'm the agent on both sides of the transaction. Our rules here are we don't talk about price or motivation with either side of the equation. We represent both people. I mean, really, there shouldn't be a job for us. A tenant should go to a landlord and say, I like your space. How much is it worth? That's very fair. I'll take it. But because people are people and everybody wants to negotiate, there happens to be some space for us.
Well, and again, I think that space is in representation, just like it is politically, right? We want to be able to have good representatives, good guidance, people that can provide good advice and really look out for our best interests. And, that's how I make my money, is being able to be that representative. And even when we're working both sides of an equation, many people think there's got to be this great conflict of interest. There isn't. There isn't for me. I don't have a conflict of interest. We're able to put parties together. So, Mark, the residential folks, certainly in the U.S., I don't know about in Canada or not, since it's not my place, but the residential people here, their attitude toward dual agency is absolutely not. Many of them, okay, will come along with, goodness, no, completely wrong. I would never do that. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, obviously shouldn't do it any more than climbing on a roof. But they also will come away with the idea that you just cannot do it properly without a conflict of interest. But I'm assuming you don't have that problem.
I don't have that problem either. And it's one of the things that you bring up that shows the difference between residential and commercial. There are many differences, but one of those differences is, I mean, they fight for their listings. And once they have their listing, they put it up on a multiple listing service, which tends to do a lot of the work for them. They've measured the space, they have the details of the home, and that's the big process. The people that do better in residential are people that can get listings. In commercial, there are people that are listing agents or buyer's agents that do very well. It doesn't have to do with that. I can get a host of listings. I can get a host of offers to purchase. It doesn't mean they're going to complete. The magic in commercial is having the skill set to get through conditions and get to that finalized period with the second deposit and a transaction that's going to close. That's what makes a difference.
It's so interesting because so many people come to me and they're scratching their head, and those people that can come to me, I work in a big, Remax, franchise with 1,200 agents, many of whom believe it's fine for them to dabble, and they allow them to dabble, which of course I'm not a big believer in dabbling unless you've got the education and experience to back it up. But they'll always come to me with this, Mark, I don't understand. They don't return my phone calls. And I try to explain to them, it's not just the fact that you're working in residential. I said, it's also the fact that they're really the only reason they want to bring their asset, their property public is if they can't get both sides done. And then it's the same even for us. And as we know, there are commercial brokerage firms out there that their listings would never see the light of day because all of them are traded in-house. And so I love having this conversation with you about that. Let me shift gears here. What's this team look like? What's your outfit look like today? Can you describe it to me in terms of number of brokers or the franchise and support teams? But what does it look like for you?
Yeah, our office is an office of about 75, 80 agents with maybe 8 or 9 that are commercial, 3 others, so a 4-person team is what I'm on. And I was at a previous symposium, 2011, that Remax held in Denver with where Rod Santamassimo talked. And I picked up his book, Teams That Dominate. And I think my previous teammate that I had, we were more similar, not exactly similar, but more similar. And I took to heart a lot of the words that Rod talked about having different people. And originally it started in 2019, December 2019. I did another deal with a commercial agent when I was a single agent again, and it went very well. And I said, you should be at a desk near me. I'll share what I know first, and you can give me a heads up on what you're going to be listing, and we'll do more business. He said, well, I'd only do that if we were partners. So it created a lot more conversation, and we became partners shortly after that, did a trial year, and it's worked out very good. The third person that came to our team demanded to be on the team, and she's an MBA and brings a whole different skill set. I can do the math and the pie charts and make wonderful looking reports, but it's not what I do for most of my clients most of the time. So she brings another dynamic to the team, the patience to deal with the numbers and the way everything looks.
So you've got the great brokers working with you. You've got the support team, and that support team. Did I hear that right, Mark? That it sounds like it's a higher level than, again, not to diminish admin, but do you have admin support? But then you also kind of have that middle level, support as well. That's a couple maybe steps up the ladder, so to speak. Say that again for me, because I want to know. I want people to understand your structure.
Yeah, and our fourth member of the team is a newer agent, an associate at this point, that we expect to bring on as a full teammate, who's brought in a couple of very significant listings and will do great things in her career. We also have a full-time administrative assistant. Now, Interesting to note, December 2019, when my first partner came on, I had a full-time assistant at that point, and pre-pandemic, I would keep her busy all day, every day. She's pretty amazing. She's keeping up with the four of us right now, but there's also a lower level of volume that's still continuing to this day. That's allowing us to be more deal-centric than running around chasing our tails, spending time with everybody, wondering what's going to happen.
Okay. Explain that more to me. I find that interesting. So what is this deal centric, not running around our tails? So let me preface that with one of the things I try to teach people in top producer training is this idea that if there's one killer that can help you fail in this business and what we do every day, that's wasting time with bad assignments. Because they seem like they come at us every day, and not bad people. They might be really good people, but the assignments themselves are not assignments that we should be working on. Is this similar to what you're talking about?
Both of these last two female agents that joined my team came from a large national brokerage where business is done in a different way, and we're still breaking out some of those trends. An RFP will come out. Or an agent will list a small apartment building in a popular neighborhood. So the RFP comes out, it's kind of a broker bake-off, as they call it, or a small apartment building is listed. And I quickly add up, well, if I was one side of that equation, I would make X amount of dollars. There'll be 11 offers. If I win, I can tell everyone I won, but I don't really have money to go out and celebrate that. I'd rather, and the chances are you're not going to win in those situations where there's going to be 11 or 12 offers on a small apartment building. I'd rather take that 7 or 8 hours or 10 hours, whatever it is, and invest that in working on developing a listing of my own that I can take to my own people. My time is much more valuable. Every year at the end of the year, I divide what I made per transaction, what I made per hour. I estimate how many hours I worked that year, and I divide by my income. When I consult in the future, in the following year, I do consult at that hourly rate.
It's a logical no-brainer. There again, something that all of us teach, and that is to say, you better know what you're worth. Because if you can't, on any given minute, if I look at you and say, "What are you worth per hour?" and if you don't have the answer to that, I think you're failing yourself. And so the difference here is that you really put pen to paper. You really, truly know, what did I do last year? So now that way you can understand what ROI is all about in your own professional life. And for me, that ROI carries right over to my personal life. That's how I look at that, if I decide that it's a Friday afternoon, as it will be today, and it's 2:00, and if I don't feel like grinding it out because nobody wants to hear from me, it means I can go play from 2 to 5. But what does that mean from a dollars and cents point of view is I want to go, take that personal time. I like to even know that part too. But it doesn't surprise me the way you do those analyticals, Mark, given the way you operate your business. And I want to talk more about that now. So to me, I'm getting a sense that your business is similar to mine. You have a lot of focus on listings and securing the listing. You're in control of the listing. You then can, handle that transaction, bring in the buyer. You've also worked with a lot of big corporations or institutions. Do you still do that? And if you do, what does that business look like? What are you doing for these institutions? And aren't you butting heads with some of the big old commercial brokerage houses? Or tell me a little bit about that, please.
I still do that, but one of the luxuries I've had in my business is to be a forecaster and to be in the fastest moving stream. I still work with a number of those businesses, but leasing is a little bit slower, let's say, after the pandemic. So leasing is something I'm a little less focused on. Leasing is the lifeblood of a commercial agent. When my first partner joined, he had done some residential. His skill set is more suited for commercial, and he came over and was prepared to do sales, because a person transversing from residential to commercial knows sales. And I said, you have to do leasing. Leasing is our lifeblood. If you don't do leasing, it's not going to work, because a sale can fall apart for any reason. A lease, you discuss the lease, you may fight over a couple of issues, but one day or another, it's getting signed and you're getting paid.
There's a nugget. If there's a nugget of a nugget, that's a nugget. And then we also do a lot of leasing. And as much as I'm more of a sale transactional broker on the seller side, as we are dealing with a lack of inventory right now and have been the greatest lack of inventory I've seen in decades, and it's pretty much all we do. How do we make sure that we can keep our heads above water? Leasing. It's I'm with you there all the way. Couple things, and let me just start with what you just went off of for just a moment, if you don't mind, Mark. I love your take on this. I try to get everybody's take on this because I think this is important. Obviously, we're part of a hybrid brand. We're part of a hybrid brand that is well known for residential, but yet we have folks like us who are commercial investment practitioners only. We don't sell houses. We would never think about selling a house. But let's talk about that. Do residential agents belong doing commercial deals, in your opinion?
Them dabbling in a commercial deal usually ends up in misfortune. Often they keep it to themselves for the first few months of listing. This could be so much money. And they've taken themselves away from doing 20 or 30 residential deals, the deals that they know how to do. I pride myself, though, on dealing with residential brokers. I get so many referrals from the residential brokers that know they can't do it. But I have some that bring me deals because the other commercial agents won't return their calls. And those are some of the easiest deals to do. Very short conditional periods, different lawyers that they're dealing with. I tell my sellers, if a residential agent has the buyer for us, I'm all ears.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear you there. It just simply means when we have that happening on smaller assets, our role can change a little bit more. And in that, oftentimes we're also guiding them through the process, which I never mind doing. I don't mind helping that residential agent on the other side. I only kind of have one condition, and that condition it simply means don't come at me as a residential agent acting like you know what you're doing in commercial if you don't. If you come to me and say, Mark, listen, I'm going to help out my client here. I'm not super skilled in commercial. I'll take anything you'll give me. It's like, thank you very much. I appreciate such honesty. Now let me work with you in that way. Let me shift this question to you a little bit different way, Mark. Residential agents, oftentimes, at least in my career, they've come to me saying, I want to do what you do. I like what you guys do. What you do looks really interesting. I'm sick and tired of selling houses or whatever else it might be. So you believe that sales is sales, many, many differences between what we do, but you believe that residential agent can make a shift to commercial.
I haven't seen it done very successfully very often, and I haven't seen anyone that does both well. It's a completely different skill set, and you really have to forget everything you've learned and really be willing to learn. And that's the challenge that I've seen with people that have tried to do it. The drug is administered at a different rate. I show up every month, whether it's been a good month or not a great month, smiling, going to work, doing the same things I do all the time, knowing that some of my paydays come after 9 months, 12 months, 19 months, where they need to get the drug administered much more regularly. That's how housing works. There's maybe a cooling off period or financing for a couple of days, but pretty soon that deal's done. That's the hard adjustment for them to deal with.
You nailed it. You did. Our sales cycles are so dramatically different than even that when they come to me and they say, Mark, I think I want to do what you do. And I say, you're going to have to break a big, big, big paradigm. Because yes, there's many differences, so many differences, but the biggest one is, when you go meet with, those sellers in their kitchen and you get those documents signed and you're on the MLS a day or two later and you're, talking PAs that next weekend and then you're at a closing table 21 or 30 days later. It's like, we're just barely getting warmed up on commercial. And we might have, like I tell my seller clients, it's not unusual for me to go through one purchase sales agreement, go through a second purchase sales agreement and due diligence, and we might be on the third purchase sales agreement and hope this time we've got it nailed. And the patience that takes, as you know, is unbelievable, right?
Absolutely. And there's some listings. My team is amazed, but Where did this listing come from? Where did this listing come from? I've been chasing some listings still for 2 to 10 years that I will get soon. But you have to be in it for the long haul. And that's something I think that once you've learned residential is very hard to break out of your system.
I agree with you. Mark, tell me a little bit about credentials. I've had different CCIMs and SIORs and ALCs and MBAs and lots of these, acronym designations behind names. Do you have any designations behind you? And if so, what? And what does it mean to you, or what doesn't it mean to you, if you don't mind, so that the audience can better understand this?
I'm a CCIM candidate member. I'm almost there, but I don't know what it would really do to augment my business. I think, the fortitude of a person and the skills that they apply, the lack of procrastination. I get after myself all the time. When I was younger in the business, you write down, I'm going to call this CEO, and then that week's call sheet goes away and you put it on next week's call sheets. And after 3 weeks, you just don't call that person. So I try and procrastinate less. I'm the first person in the office every day. And I find people coming to the office, whether residential or what have you, and they'll take time to talk with people about their weekend or what have you. I'm like you. I break for my family time. I work aggressively 4.5 days a week, and I don't work evenings and weekends.
That's interesting. So here's what I find interesting about that. It's I don't know, lack of a better term. It just comes to my mind, and I'll call it the paradox of discipline. Okay, so the paradox of discipline, as I hear you say that to me, Mark, is this. You're highly disciplined in your work ethic, in your work approach. You're equally disciplined in your time off and having fun and balancing your life. So when you can come along so steadfastly, so decisively and deliberately and say, I work my 4.5 days. But when you're working your 4.5 days, you're working your 4.5 days. So that way, when you're doing your weekends, you're doing your family time and you're recreating and all the rest of it, you're really, truly doing it. So as we start talking about these attributes of a top producer, and I know this from you anyhow, is that, I can't help, and some people think discipline is this really bad word. And I don't. I think discipline is a word that serves us so well, and it isn't this word that has to be, drudgery and painful. You use discipline to really serve you in your life. Yes?
Absolutely. My wife knows what I do when I come to work, and I could never work from home. I just would not be in the right gear to work from home. And I tell people at the office, I'm not here telling my spouse that I'm trying really hard and talking to people at the office and making friendships. I am here to work, and then when I leave, I'm not working anymore.
Yeah, a lot of parallels there with me, Mark. I'm the same way. I've gotten a lot looser with working more flexible environments, whether it be because of travel or otherwise. But I'm a kind of a go to office, get it done, get out of the office, and now get on with the rest of life. So that's really interesting. Okay, let's get into a little bit about prospecting. Let's talk about prospecting, marketing communications, planning, wherever you want to take this. Top producer. Okay, so you guys are a top producing team. I see your posts. I see how you're, month after month, you're one of the very top people. Year after year, the same thing. What are you doing to keep that pipeline full? So help me out here. Are you doing 2 or 3 things, one thing really, really well? Or are you doing a smattering of things, making sure that you're keeping your name and your brand and your success out there? Help me out. Direct mail, social, email marketing, networking. Give me the lowdown on this. This is really what I want you to help our viewer understand.
I'd say it's really a smattering of things. I would say probably only for the first 2 or 3 years of my life, work career, did I really cold call. I get a lot of referrals from residential agents in my office and from every residential office in the city. I get a lot of business from lawyers and from lenders in the city. I keep in touch with my people. I deal with the same clients quite regularly. And again, there's no startup to getting to know someone if you've dealt with them 4 or 5 times before. Someone told me early on in my career, you want to meet people and do 5 deals with them in your lifetime. And I strive to do that. If I can do 5 deals with everybody that I meet, I'm sure I'll be fine. I make a big point of going out for lunch with people, who you take for lunch and where you go for lunch, and to listen to the conversation at my table and also the tables around me. I shared that at one of the symposiums I spoke about at. But so people see me out for lunch. I go to the places where you would be seen. Lunch is more popular for me. I go home for dinner to my family. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I'm in the office by 7. I've already done some work at home before I've left. But it's really just keeping in constant contact. Another odd thing that I would say has augmented my business, and this is going to sound odd, but would be Apple CarPlay. To have an audio voice in my car, making calls and making texts. I listen to my rock and roll on the way into the office, which is a 3-minute drive. And then the rest of the day, the radio is off and I'm making calls and sending texts. When don't have the next person I want to call, I scroll through my contacts and I call people from yesteryear, people that I haven't talked to in a while. And they're so surprised to hear from me, but it's presence. It's front of mind awareness. We don't do a ton of mail outs. We don't do a ton of advertising, a ton of personal contact and a ton of relationships, long-term friendships. Once you get into my vortex, I don't let you go.
So that's really interesting. It's kind of real estate 101, right? It's that you have developed, excuse me, over all of these years, an amazing sphere. Not always in commercial real estate do we have a sphere like you can think of a sphere in residential real estate with, the folks that, maybe you're going to school with or playing soccer with or going to church with and all of that. Because we don't sell homes. We're selling, the office buildings, industrial buildings, or what have you. But what you're doing is you're certainly old school, and I say that with all due respect, going to lunch. So here you are, you're taking care of clients, you're getting face-to-face, you're talking with them. At the same time, you're also hitting them up with text messages, letting them know that you're thinking about them or you're want to stay top of mind with them. And so for you, it's a relationship game all the way, right?
Absolutely. And at the restaurants, whoever I'm taking, an appraiser, another agent, a lawyer, a lender, I see other clients. Other people see me. It reminds them that you're still in the game. Too many people just drift off and are asked, are you still in the business? People know I'm in the business.
So here's a question for you. You have so many of your activities, so I would almost call it programmed or automatically integrated within your day. You know what you're doing. You know when you're doing it. Do you have to say, I'm prospecting now, or I'm working on my deal now, or are you saying, I'm making sure that deal's happening, I'm making sure I'm winning that listing, I'm making sure that I'm in contact with other people relative to prospecting, or do you block your time? What would you say to that, Mark?
I don't really. I just really go to the next burning flame, and my whole life is really scheduled. Even my vacations, I book major vacations with my wife, and I work towards that date. I have the things that I do 100 days out, the things that I do 90 days out. And when I worked with just my assistant and myself, I had my deals coming condition free just before I left, or a couple of easy ones that could be signed off while I was gone. Everything is programmed. I'm not a spontaneous person, probably. I'm a person that likes to know where I'm going, what I'm going to see, who I'm going to be with. And I like a schedule.
So let me ask you, both of us take good advantage of our network. And when I talk about good advantage of our network, I'm going to be specific relative to referrals. And, in fact, Doug Collins from Colorado was one of our top producers that I interviewed yesterday. And Doug paid out, I think last year, over $700,000 in referral fees. Just an absolutely stunning, amazing number. And we've gone well into the six figures with paying out referral fees because most very successful residential agents know I'm not going to bother with that commercial deal. The best thing I can do is earn money on a referral and send it over to someone who will successfully complete it. How do you stay in front of residential agents? Is it just an easy thing that happens within your office, or are you actually proactive in getting information in front of them? But, since referrals are so important within the RE/MAX network, how do you work that?
I think the longevity that I've been in the business and the history of how I've treated other people and dealt with people in this city is what benefits me there. Um, there are other firms and some other agents, commercial agents, that just will never return the call of a residential agent in our city. It's just the way that they are. And so their listings will never get shown because they know that they'll likely never get paid for a deal, even if they end up bringing a deal. There are agents that have referred deals to other commercial agents. The deal gets done, and the commercial agent has told them, well, no, there was so much work there, there's no referral to be paid. A referral is something we should be happy to pay. Same thing I tell my clients, a commission is something they should be happy to pay. There's value. If there's value there and you can prove the value in what you've done, those fees are immeasurable. So for them to be able to call me, receive a check, a new thing I've started is I've started writing the offers for the residential agents that bring me deals. Whatever it takes.
So it's reputation. So the note that I made here, Mark, on what you just said is your reputation precedes you. That was the note that I just wrote on my page for you. So you've earned it. And that's what that means. And it means that, here's a practitioner who cares a lot about reputation, doing a great job. And then what ends up happening is it catches up to you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I follow the transaction through from the beginning. A lot of agents tie up a property. They go, it's worth this much to me. And they go out and celebrate. Or I never add up what it's worth. Follow the transaction through to its completion. Do it properly, do it well, which is what you'll always be remembered for. Then I add it up and I go, well, maybe I worked a little too hard on this one, or I made good money per hour. But I don't look at it that way. It's all the foundation of reputation. This year I've received referrals from an accountant and a lawyer, both of which I don't even know. But lawyers and accountants from their firm that know me are putting them onto me.
Right. So when we get those, I don't know, it means the world to me. And we also are really fortunate that we get referrals from other commercial brokers in our market, from some of the big brokerage houses, and they will send business over to our little RE/MAX commercial group saying, we know who they are, we know the work that they do, we know they're consummate professionals, they're going to handle their clients right, they're going to package this asset properly, they're not going to be haphazard about this, and their focus is on other bigger or development deals or whatever else it might be, which isn't what we do. We don't, we sell land to developers, but we're not necessarily, in their pocket nor them in ours. And so we always love it. So it's great when people can hear how that reputation that you've built over these years with the lawyers and the lenders and all the other people in the industry comes back to serve you, and how that phone keeps ringing and filling up that pipeline. So speaking of pipeline, let's talk about that for just a second. You see people in the business, I would guess, Mark, that have built successful businesses by doing only a few monster deals, or as I've said to other top producers here, that cliche of, hunting elephants or whales or whatever you want to use. And then there's other people that say, forget about that. I'm not going down that road for one reason or another. I want to fill up my pipeline with lots and lots of transactions throughout the year. And then some of us say, well, too many transactions can lead to burnout. Where are you at with that idea within commercial real estate where you can find a good balance of asset size, number of deals, number of sides you're closing per year? Are you always trying to bag the bigger deal, or are you saying, you know what, I'll leave some of that to these other people? What would you say to some of that?
Well, I never compete. So once we get up to a certain level, I know there's other brokers in our outfit that are saying I need tools to go up against so and so or so and so. I'd rather spend my dollars and make the dollars per hour without competing. So I hang out in the middle of high enough that even the dabblers in residential aren't typically playing. and kind of what is below attracting some other commercial professionals. I would say in the sales, I hang out in the $2 to $10 million zone, which is something that we can do dual agency on every deal. It's where things are at. Some of the bigger deals have an agent here and an agent from Toronto or an agent from another market. Some of the big corporate clients have referral fees or kickbacks that go back to them. So you can run around town and say you did that deal, but how much reward was there at the end of the day? I'll work for people, but I also want to be rewarded for what I bring to the table.
That's very well said, and it certainly is in line with what many of us do in our businesses. I think, as any of the viewers, for those of us that'll stick through this, top producer series of interviews, there's going to be some common themes that come through. And you just mentioned one of them, Mark, and that is that asset size, that space that you play in, which is perfectly in line with what we do as well. When you talk about $2 to $10 million, it's a space where not only can we compete, but we compete extraordinarily well. And we've just hit that ceiling where we're not banging our heads, too hard, saying, this just simply isn't worth it by the time you may compress fees or by the time you deal with your other splits. Let me shift for just a second here before we dive into attributes of top producers, yourself and other people you see. And let me get to brand versus agent broker for just a moment. I just want your take on that, because people have different spins on that. And so the question is, does brand matter in commercial investment real estate where you work? Or is it, sure, brand matters, but it's really about the broker? What would you say to that?
I think the first part of your philosophy has to be your reputation, and you could be almost anywhere. But I think people like to see a successful brand, a successful person, a person that drives a successful car. And RE/MAX has been very, very good for me. One of the things it's done is they deal with me, but I've never had to explain where I work. The other large benefit that it's afforded me is immediately my referrals of residential properties, which I never really focused on, but probably quadrupled, where I was handing out 4 times as many referrals to residential agents, and I was able to pick the agents that give me the best commercial leads. And this is, again, another reminder, hey, I've got something for you. Do I ask everybody if they want fries with that? No. But immediately, even friends and family, I think my sister said, well, a residential agent. Well, I always did. But when I went to RE/MAX, they knew I had something to do with residential real estate or real estate as a whole, as opposed to working at just a simple commercial real estate firm.
So to summarize what you just said, as you're out there talking to clients, lenders, or your referral sources sending business to you, it's about Mark Thiessen. It's about your team. It's about your group. It's about your reputation, all this great work you've done. And, having RE/MAX there behind you certainly gives a level of comfortability. But once again, it's really you and your reputation, your good work leading the way. Yes?
Absolutely. But RE/MAX requires no explanation. It's fantastic.
That's an interesting way to put that. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. That it doesn't need an explanation. And you're right. After 50 years of brand awareness, we can say RE/MAX, and it's basically enough said. That's it.
Yep.
It's enough. You've told me everything I need to tell you, similar to like a McDonald's. Okay, I understand what it is. You needn't say another word. Big players within the industry. And now let's get down to what can you do for me today? All right. Well, that's interesting. Now, the network, is most of your business all very local? Do you take advantage of the network? Do you take advantage of RE/MAX offices around Canada, around the US, or around the world? Does that network mean much in and there's not a right or wrong answer here, is most of your business just very, very local?
Yep. The business in Canada seems to refer east to west. So I have some very deep relationships in Toronto, and I get a number of significant leads from Toronto. And typically, in the same fashion, I'm typically referring further west in Canada. Recently, I just referred a couple of deals to Scott Hughes who I know you also interviewed, and that's working out very well. I mean, the network of Remax commercial practitioners and also other companies. I think I probably Google fairly well. I think my reputation is documented somewhere on the internet. I get leads from Texas, from Florida, from people I don't know. So I do work partially on the networking with other brokers, and again, finding a good broker with similar attributes in another city where I can send them some work. That's the best way to remind them.
That makes good logical sense right there. Yeah, we had a great talk with Scott. Hold him in the highest regard. Fantastic broker, and we're lucky to have folks like you and Scott within the network. And I think a lot of people just don't realize the depth that we have within our brand, because again, it's associated so much with, the billions and billions of balloon impressions out there, that the depth, and I'm not trying to plug Remax Commercial here, but really plugging the tremendously successful commercial network that we have. And I want more residential agents to understand that no matter where they are in the country, there's an opportunity to find a commercial broker who can help them out. And it may not be in their same city. Maybe it's across the state line. Maybe it's across the border. But we've got such depth within, and you and Scott are the ultimate examples of what's just a little bit north of me. So here in Minnesota. Okay, let's get down to, I'm trying to think, I'm looking at these questions here, Mark, and how to frame them up for you, specifically to you, about the attributes of a top producer. And because, it's at this stage of an interview where I can see the pieces coming together. So here's what I mean by that. So when I look at a question, I say, Mark, do you work harder? Do you work smarter? And I say, well, I know the answer to that. He does both. The cat's working super smart. He's also working very hard, but not stupid hard. So just give me a second and delineate that for me, because you always hear that cliche of harder versus smarter. I think you're nailing it on both fronts, but what would you say to that?
Yeah, I definitely work hard. I work at 110 miles an hour, but I think the key is to having a rewarding career and a successful career, as one may measure it, is to work smarter, is to make better decisions, is to learn from mistakes or things that you did in the past, which is how I started out. I of course, made some mistakes. I think we all do. Work smart, work hard. My wife takes care of everything at home. I think about nothing. I don't cook at home during the week. I do all the cooking on the weekend. And Friday is a 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. day. I don't work past that. So have a life balance. But while I am working, I work very hard. I go from one fire to the next. But I think working smarter is what probably delivers the best results, is to value your time, know what you're worth, and then apply yourself in the right arenas. Some people feel, I'm busy, I'm working on this, I'm doing something, I'm creating a transaction, and sometimes don't realize how much of their time that they're wasting. I think you really have to, either you do the self-affirmation, somehow you have to value yourself and know what you're worth and decide what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. Work smart.
I think that's perfectly said. And as I work around different people and I'll watch how much time, somebody will spend on a particular transaction or a particular lead or preparing a file, I'm just trained to move through things swiftly. I think everything deserves its commensurate amount of time, but too often it's easy just to get bogged down and say, I just spent 3 hours in overwriting an email or over researching something that may not end up going anywhere. Goodness gracious, I just made no money on that. Now, again, it's not to be so terribly money focused, but if there's no money coming in, we're out of business. So I think you've done that really well. The other thing I find interesting, this is important, by the way. Again, when I look at you as a top producer, or Scott, or Doug, or anybody else out there, it's interesting because you guys are all top producers almost like in everything in life. And I'll talk a lot about this as I'm trying to teach and train people because, and I think Scott said it yesterday, and I teach it in my course as well, and that idea that if you think you're going to be a top producer over here in business, but you don't have your ducks in a row or you're not living a good life over on the other side, you're missing the boat. And the same way, and so what I found interesting, what you just said, Mark, is when you said, my wife is able to handle all of these other items over there. Now, you're lucky. You're blessed that you've got a wife who hangs with you and who's able to take on those responsibilities. I'm the same way. I've got the greatest partner in the whole wide world, and I don't know what I would do without her. She allows me to focus on my business. And so there, talk about support. You have the same kind of support at home so that you can be successful in your business is the same way you surround yourself with support in the office. And I think that that's something that we can't. Number one, I think the acknowledgement of it is super important because we are lucky to have that. Would you agree there?
Yeah, and we've always negotiated what our roles are, and she knows what I do. When our children were very young, I did the before and after school program, and she worked for a living as well. And at one point, I just said, I could just spend that hour and a half or 2 hours a day, and we could do things differently. We've always been able to come to an agreement as to where we should travel to and how we should proceed with different issues. It's very important for me to be there when my children were young and be part of their lives. And I'm a very much part of their life to this day. But there's things that I don't have to do. And when I leave the house, I'm working. I come back, I'm going to have dinner, and we're going to relax together. And that's just the lifestyle that we agree is the way we should live.
No, that's I can relate to that really, really well. And I think I want people to understand that. And, there you are. I don't want to use the word negotiating. I don't want to necessarily use even the word compromising. You're two people figuring it out that serves the family the best, serves each other the best, and then you can go on to have that successful business and personal life. Okay, let's wrap this up, Mark. Let's wrap this up. I want you to tell me, as you think about all these people who are hyper successful, or as you get ready to go to work and you look in the mirror and you go, yeah, guy's doing all right. Repeat yourself. I don't care what you need to do. As you're educating the 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, I don't care. What are these attributes? What does somebody need to do in real estate, commercial real estate, to be a top producer? What does this look like? Help me out here a little bit more.
Well, I think to sell anything, whether you're selling cars or whatever you're selling, know your stuff. And somehow you have to learn that, whether it's through a mentorship or trial and error or whatnot. Know your stuff. Truly apply yourself. Ask yourself if there's times in the day that you're not doing what you should be doing. Absolutely apply yourself. I think that if people are unhappy with their results, they have to look back at the effort that they put in. It's a direct correlation.
Boy, oh boy, talk about, I'm writing these notes, and the notes I'm writing are as basic as it gets, or as fundamental as it gets, right? And that's what you're doing. You're bringing back out the fundamentals. There is no secret sauce. There isn't anything highly unusual here. It's those same things that we know so well that people can have a difficult time actually doing. And so often people want to find, the magic pill or the magic coach or the magic whatever it might. Nothing against coaches. In fact, I'll be interviewing one here in just a few minutes. I'm all for them. But they want to find maybe that easy street, that easier way. And, when you're talking about know your stuff, getting educated, putting in the time, putting in the experience, that's what you've done. That's what I've done. And it's not always fun. It can take a long time. You can have the bad month, the bad week. You can even have the bad year and scratch your head and say, well, for Pete's sake, what am I doing here? But then in due time, the rewards can start to come back to you. I certainly have lived that, and you said that really, really well. Good to see you. Thank you. You've nailed some of these things. I think people can clearly see, the makings of a top producer, Mark, when they look at you. It's an easy one to see. This isn't complicated. This is, someone that has put in the time, works hard, stays sharp. And stay sharp. I don't say that lightly, especially in a world today where you can see people walking around with, so often my head feels cloudy. I don't see anything cloudy about your head. You're going in that office, you're getting your work done, you're talking to your people, you're problem solving, and then you're living a good life. So I can't give you enough kudos on your success. It's really fantastic. Not to mention, I got to give you all due respect as a heck of a family man too. So that carries a lot of weight in my world. So enough of my yammering here, Mark. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for being part of the RE/MAX Commercial Network. And I look forward to seeing you here also in just a couple of weeks. Mark, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, the easiest way, is there an email address or something that we can get up on the screen for people?
Sure. It's just Mark, my name, MARK, at MT, my initials, -cd.ca.
Perfect.
Also by cell phone, 204-794-5700.
There you go, guys. There is another broker that gave you their cell number. I get a kick out of that when you guys do that. You're not shy about it at all. I'll get it right out there.
Call me anytime except evenings and weekends.
I love that. That's too good. That's fair. I promise I'll stick to those rules. Maybe. Mark, thank you. Thank you again. Hey, listen, you guys, I hope this was helpful. I know I'm taking notes. I'm getting something out of this. I take notes from every single one of these people that I interview, and I will go back and I will give myself a summary. When I give myself a summary, I don't care how basic it is. I don't care if I already know it. Okay, I'm writing it down, and I'm a self-development person my entire life, more than 40 years of self-development. And so I love learning from people like Mark and our other folks. So thanks for being with me. We've got more to come. Mark, once again, great to see you. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.